10. Dracula teeth. 45-year-old Alan Dale Lee is one of the ugliest and most memorable criminals anywhere in Florida. And that's saying something, because Florida is home to some very interesting-looking characters. This guy has the kind of face that would give you nightmares. According to the police reports, this man has been arrested multiple times for some pretty similar crimes, including things like aggravated assault, the possession of drug paraphernalia, and often the possession of meth. It's his teeth that have made him famous, though, as he looks like a meth-addicted Dracula. Alan only has about 3 teeth left in his whole mouth, and they don't look suitable for eating anything other than applesauce. Last we heard, Alan had been picked up in Dade County for trying to stab another man in the stomach with a knife. One of the officers involved in his arrest said it was difficult to keep a straight face while they were taking his mugshot because the cops had never seen a person with such terrifying teeth. Just because he was unfortunate enough to be born with a gnarly set of chompers, you can't really feel bad for Alan. It wasn't his teeth that forced him to do drugs and hurt people. 9. Horned criminal. Is it really that surprising when a man with body modifications to make himself look like the devil commits heinous crimes? A very ugly man named Caius Veovis has been found guilty of a horrifying triple murder. This guy has implants in his forehead that make it look as if devil horns are trying to grow out of his face. He also has a tattoo that says 666. Oh yeah, and he was convicted on 3 counts of kidnapping, 3 counts of intimidating a witness, and for his involvement in the killings of David Glasser, Edward Frampton, and Robert Chadwell. Their remains were found buried and dismembered on private property. An employee from the local Home Depot who witnessed Caius going into the store to buy saws testified against him. It was hard for the employee to forget Caius because, well, he's pretty unforgettable. It's not every day a guy with horns and satanic tattoos comes into the Home Depot to purchase handsaws, hatchets, and hammers. But don't worry, you'll probably never meet this guy on the street. Caius Veovis screamed at the jury that convicted him, saying, "I'll see you all in hell, every effing one of you. I'll see you all in hell." After being found guilty of the 3 murders, he should be spending the rest of his life locked up behind bars. 8. Ugly pervert. David Kelly has been described as extremely ugly and disgusting. This guy is a registered sex offender who was recently arrested at a Walmart in Orlando, Florida. He got busted on the store surveillance cameras squeezing a girl's butt in the toy aisle. As if Walmart needed to be any more of a nightmare to go to, now you've got ugly creeps running around grabbing people's behinds. The child and her family had gone to Walmart and she asked if she could go look at some toys. She went by herself, and that was when David targeted her. He walked by, squeezed her butt, walked away, then came back for seconds and did it again. The victim cried and ran to her parents, saying that an ugly man had attacked her. The loss prevention officer at Walmart followed David out to the parking lot and tried to catch him. When David made a run for it, a bystander tackled him and kept him pinned to the ground until the police arrived. He has since been charged with lewd and lascivious molestation of a minor and sent to jail. 7. Thick neck. Charles Dion McDowell has quite the neck on him. In fact, unless you're Gaston from Disney's Beauty and the Beast, there's likely nobody else alive who has a neck quite so thick. Charles was arrested in Escambia County, Florida, on charges of eluding the police, possessing marijuana and cocaine, methamphetamine, and a few other drug-related crimes. But it's not his crimes that Charles is now famous for. It's that great big neck. That thing is like a redwood tree trunk. The Escambia County Sheriff's Department shared his mugshot on Facebook, and it has traveled around the world. It's not that he's ugly per se, he's just got a neck like a wild bison. But here's what a lot of people don't know about Charles and his big neck. After his photo went viral, he created an Instagram account and somehow managed to gather 1.3 million followers. What can we say? People eat this stuff up. But he didn't use his following for good, as the New York Post recently reported that he was picked up by the police again. He was put behind bars for the third time in less than 2 months. Yet again, it was for meth and cocaine. And who knows, maybe that's the secret formula to his ridiculously wide neck. Can you think of any other super unattractive people that have used their bad looks to gain followers on social media? Who are they? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 6. Squashed nose. Speaking of criminals and cocaine, a millionaire has been sentenced to 5 years in jail after getting busted with a pile of cocaine worth around $200,000. The drugs were found hidden inside the air vents of his luxury Bentley. For a wealthy property developer, 45-year-old James Brown isn't a very good crook. He's also quite horrifying to look at. He may have retired at the age of 36, but he went on to ruin his life by getting addicted to coke. He actually did so much of this stuff that his nose collapsed and he was left with an ugly depression in the middle of his face. Did you think that snorting too much of the stuff could cause your nose to deteriorate was a myth? Well then, James Brown busted that myth wide open. As for the reason the police found so much cocaine in his car in the first place, it all happened back in December of 2011 when he was stopped by police. Along with the cocaine, they discovered illegal weapons inside the hotel James was staying at in South Wales. He had a 9mm semi-automatic Walther PP1, a Russian 9mm Tula Tokarev, and a rifle with ammunition. He had the weapons allegedly for his own safety. Part of his cocaine problem was that, other than losing his nose and turning into a ghoul, he became paranoid that people were constantly out to get him. 5. The ugly wife. Have you ever seen the memes of the before and after plastic surgery pictures of Kylie Jenner that say, "You're not ugly, you're just poor"? Well, that might actually be very true for some people. A woman in northern China was so ugly that she was sued by her husband. If you're thinking, well, this can't possibly be true, it is. And the husband won the lawsuit. His name is Jian Feng, and he complained that after his wife gave birth to their daughter, he became disturbed because his daughter was extremely ugly and he didn't understand why. He accused his wife of cheating on him with an ugly man. And that was when it came to light that before the couple had met, his wife had spent roughly $100,000 on plastic surgeries. She hadn't looked very good prior to the surgery, and that became evident when they had their kid together. To Feng's defense, his wife really did look like a completely different person. Her sunken, droopy eyes were lifted into lovely almond-shaped ones. Her flat nose wasn't flat at all anymore. Her odd, unsymmetrical mouth was now perfectly symmetric, and she had nice, plump lips. But rather than acting like a rational human, Feng filed the lawsuit. The complaint in the lawsuit wasn't actually that his wife was secretly ugly underneath all her surgery. Rather, it was that she had convinced him to marry her without divulging what she really looked like. In other words, he claimed that she tricked him into marrying her with plastic surgery. The judge has since ordered her to pay Feng $120,000 in damages. Can you believe this? We just wonder what kind of relationship he'll have with his ugly daughter. 4. Worst tattoo ever. David Jonathan Winkleman from Iowa has the worst tattoo in the world. It's beyond bad, and it's right on his forehead, making him a big, ugly billboard. He no doubt regrets his decision to get a radio station tattooed on his forehead, but there's not much he can do about it now. In the year 2000, a radio jockey apparently offered his listeners 6 figures if anyone could get the station's logo tattooed on their forehead. David volunteered, but he made the really terrible mistake of not consulting with the radio station first. He went and got the tattoo, then walked into the station to collect his cash. That was when he found out that the radio broadcast had been a prank, and they weren't going to give him any money. David tried to take the radio station to court over the tattoo, but that never went anywhere. Winkleman then became famous after being arrested on a misdemeanor charge and having his mugshot go viral. He's now basically the laughingstock of Ohio, and it doesn't help that he was pretty ugly to begin with. We also don't understand why he had the tattoo covering his entire forehead. Like, why wouldn't you get a super small one? David is not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's definitely the ugliest. 3. Big Chin Man. Victor Joseph Espinoza has a very startling mugshot. He looks like some kind of a toad-human hybrid. From the lips up, he looks like a normal 425-pound, 193-kilogram gangster. From the lips down, he looks like he has a tumor growing inside of his chin. He sort of looks like one of those frogs with a neck that bulges like a giant bubble before letting out a big ribbit. That's to say, his chin is absolutely enormous. He was recently busted snatching a 10-year-old boy and sniffing his arm. Yeah, a pretty weird crime that earned him 32 months in prison. It happened while the boy and his friend were walking down a dirt path on their way to soccer practice. Victor grabbed the kid by his scruff and started sniffing him before the child broke free and the pair ran to tell their soccer coach what had happened. The soccer coach tackled Victor to the ground, but the hefty gang member ran away. Luckily, he couldn't outrun the police. They brought him into the station and took the bizarre mugshot. Not only is Victor now known as a child sniffer, he's also one of the ugliest criminals in modern history. 2. Too ugly for crime. David Holyoke is too ugly to be a criminal. David hails from Manchester in the United Kingdom. He recently started a jail sentence of 3.5 years for robbery. One of the officers involved in the case said that one look in the mirror should have told David he wasn't cut out for a life of crime. This is because his big ears and round features make him stand out from a mile away. Officers recognize David even before he sees them coming. He's so ugly, he's been nicknamed Shrek. Despite his ugly face, David was part of a gang that specialized in robbing banks. They weren't very good, though. The last bank robbery they pulled off involved threatening the cashier with a sledgehammer. It only took the police one glance to recognize David as one of the robbers. To make matters worse for David, an eyewitness described him and his unmistakably large ears. There was no chance of him ever getting away or not being identified. Hopefully, when he finally gets out of jail, he realizes that he needs to find a new profession. 1. Ugly mugshot. A suspect recently phoned 911 to complain about her ugly mugshot. In one of the most shocking crime stories ever, Tanya Ann Fowler called 911 after she got a haircut and put on some makeup to demand that they let her take a new mugshot. Of course, you can't just demand a new mugshot. Luckily for Tanya, calling the police for such trivial matters is, in fact, a crime. They picked her up on charges of misusing the 911 system along with disorderly conduct. She was able to get the mugshot she wanted, but it didn't really help. The problem with Tanya is that no amount of makeup can cover up that amount of ugly. Not only is she now a hilarious viral story all over the internet with her appalling mugshots seared into the minds of anyone with an internet connection, she's also facing more criminal charges.
Number 10. A tough performance. One of the worst Cirque du Soleil performances in history had to be cut short when an acrobat made a terrible mistake. They were performing The Beatles' Love in Las Vegas when one of the aerial artists fell and hit the floor. Luckily, the show was stopped right away, and the unidentified performer was taken immediately to the medical team, where they were reported in stable condition. But this was nothing compared to the previous Cirque du Soleil performance that actually did end up with someone dying. Back in 2013, a performer named Sarah Guillot-Gaillard was in the Cirque du Soleil show K.A. being performed in Las Vegas. She fell 50 feet while being hoisted up the side of the stage and fell down to the floor. At first, people in the audience thought it was part of the show. They thought she had fallen down on purpose until screaming and groaning filled the auditorium. Everyone could hear Sarah crying from the stage that she was in terrible pain. Tragically, Sarah didn't make it out of that one alive. The performer died from her injuries, proving once and for all how deadly being an acrobat in a traveling show can be. Despite thousands of hours of training and rehearsal, the slightest misstep can still send a professional acrobat home in a body bag. Number 9. A bad mix. The driver of a cement mixer was discovered clinging to the back of his truck hours after he died in a freak accident. He may have been on the back of his truck, but he was missing one very important feature: his head. The people who found the victim of this freak accident were ordinary residents who happened to be driving by the cement truck and realized something didn't quite look right. The man was hanging onto the side of the ladder with the upper part of his body jammed into the top of the cement drum. but he wasn't moving. Upon closer inspection, the residents realized the guy was dead. He had died in such a strange position that it looked like he was still at work. The residents quickly backed off and called the police. When the police showed up, they learned that the man had been decapitated, probably while sticking his head in the cement drum to inspect it. He lost his footing, his neck was caught in the rotating drum, and it ripped his head clean off his body. Suffice to say, working a cement truck can be a pretty hazardous job. To make things worse for the driver, he was identified as 41-year-old Juan, living and working in western Taiwan. The authorities never managed to find his head. They believed it was crushed inside the spinning mechanism. Number 8. A fierce catch. Being a fisherman is one of the most dangerous things in the world. Fisherman Jackson Housen knows this from first-hand experience. He was fishing near Coral Bay in Western Australia when he had a rather unfortunate run-in with an angry shark. He had just finished spearing a fish when a lurking shark decided to take a bite out of him. The shark had been trying to eat the same fish, but Jackson beat him to it. So, the shark took out its frustration on the fisherman, sinking its teeth right into his ankle. Jackson was in his 20s when this happened, and luckily, he was in pretty good physical condition. He was able to punch the shark in the face to disorient it. Then he hurried away for dear life. He swam over 300 feet back to his boat with the shark trailing after him. Jackson made it onto the boat without getting attacked again. He never even got a good look at the predator that tried to kill him. He believes it was probably a bull shark, one of the most dangerous on the planet. He managed to make it to the Perth Royal Hospital, where doctors fixed him up without any problems. He had some serious gashes on his leg, but walked away from the hospital without suffering any long-term damage. And the last we heard, he's still a fisherman. Would you go back to fishing if you were attacked by a shark? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 7. A dangerous fare. Being a taxi driver has never been a glamorous job, and now more than ever, it's one of the most dangerous in the world. Humberto Sierra Camacho was 46 years old and a taxi driver in Maryland. He knew the dangers of the job, but hey, it pays the bills. And up until recently, nothing has ever happened to him that a good night's sleep couldn't fix. But then, 14-year-old Romeo Velasco Cuyar flagged down his taxi and got in. He was posing as a passenger, but the drive would only last for about 10 minutes. The kid almost immediately pulled out a knife to rob Humberto of the measly $40 that he had on him. As measly as that $40 may have been, the grown adult was not about to hand it over to some punk with a knife. There was a struggle, and Humberto lost. He ended up being stabbed several times by the 14-year-old. His stab wounds were so serious that he bled out and died right there in his taxi. And to make matters even more tragic, he had only been a taxi driver for Taxi Latino in Maryland for 3 months. All the money that he made was sent back to his wife and kids still living in Mexico. Now, Humberto is dead. His wife and kids are in a horrible position, and the 14-year-old is looking at a life in jail. Number 6. A missed package. Working in an Amazon warehouse is one of the most dangerous things you can do. At least, it was for Billy Foister. When the 48-year-old man signed up to work in the Amazon warehouse, little did he know he was signing his own death warrant. He dropped onto the floor from a heart attack and was left there struggling to breathe for over 20 minutes. And to make things even more horrendous, the boss on site ordered everyone to go back to work immediately after Billy's body was dragged off the warehouse floor. This wasn't a spontaneous heart attack either. According to Billy's brother, he had gone to the clinic at the warehouse complaining about headaches and chest pains, but all the care workers said was that he was dehydrated and should drink more water and get back to work. After the incident, Amazon denied through their teeth that Billy died at the warehouse. They instead said that their trained team members responded quickly, that emergency responders arrived within minutes, and that he died at the local hospital. But of course, Amazon never did respond to any additional comments on the situation. Number 5. A bad day at the office. In Tennessee, being a postal worker is not only hazardous, it can prove deadly. 3 people were killed after a postal worker sorting mail in Memphis went absolutely crazy at a facility and shot 2 of their co-workers. Family members who arrived on scene identified one of the victims as James Wilson, the manager of the facility. However, the Postal Service and the FBI are keeping pretty quiet about the rest of the details. What we've been able to piece together so far is that the postal worker snapped, went after his boss, and then took down whoever else was in his way. We all know postal workers have a history of going crazy and murdering their co-workers. This in itself makes it a difficult job to apply for. But in October of 2010, Tennessee was rocked by yet another attack on postal office workers, this time from a robbery. 2 workers were shot by a guy who walked in looking for cash. I mean, who in the world decides to rob a post office? It really makes you want to be a little nicer to your mailman. Number 4. A bit of a shock. Harvey Tyrell was just 7 years old when he went with his family to the King Harold pub in East London. They were hanging out in the beer gardens when the young kid put his hand on a poorly installed outdoor light. This was September 11th, 2018. When the kid touched the lights, he received a massive electric shock that went through his body and stopped his heart. The little boy was killed by an overload of electricity. Now, obviously, this was not the little boy's fault. Instead, the blame fell on the electrician who rigged up the wiring, as well as the owner of the pub. The owner is David Bierman, 73 years old. In court proceedings following the death of the boy, he was given 9 years in jail for gross negligence manslaughter. The judge actually told him that his pub was a disgrace. Then there's the electrician, David's brother-in-law, Colin Naylor. Colin is a year older than David, but he was only handed down a sentence of a single year in jail for his crummy electric job. Both men had known that the electrical wiring was dangerous, and both had done nothing about it. Colin had tried to fix the lights a little bit, but he clearly wasn't a very good electrician. And that brings us to the whole point. Being an electrician is not only a dangerous job, because you might find yourself electrocuted, but because you could cause someone else's death by electric volts. Number 3. A sheepish killer. Being a farmer is tough, especially if you are a 94-year-old man who can't take proper care of his sheep. An elderly man in France, near the small town of Cestas, recently met his maker, all thanks to a rampaging ram. The old guy had been wandering across a field full of sheep when one particularly angry ram saw it had an opportunity. The male sheep knocked the old man off his balance. Then when he was on the ground, he trampled him. The guy was later found lying in the dirt with his face swollen and bruised, with no pulse. The ram had made easy work of him, trampling and beating him until he stopped moving. What police found out afterwards was that the ram was not normally aggressive. Instead, it had turned aggressive because there were a lot of female sheep around, and he was showing off as the dominant male. The 94-year-old man had decided to take a shortcut through the field where the sheep lived. This probably caused the ram to become protective of his flock, at which point it charged the man and killed him. Number 2. A predator in the woods. Speaking of wild animal attacks, a logger in a remote Russian forest was recently mauled to death after going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Logging is an extremely hazardous profession, but normally because of the heavy-duty equipment and the fact that trees are falling every which way. People get crushed by trees. They die in equipment accidents. They don't normally get mauled to death by wild beasts. According to the local authorities, the Russian logger was named Mikhail Shabaldin, 41 years old. He left the camp in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and ran into a massive Siberian tiger. Imagine his surprise when the tiger pounced from the shadows and slashed him in the face with its huge paw. The wild beast ambushed the logger before he even got to the bathroom, then dragged him away into the forest. His coworkers discovered scattered pieces of clothing, bits of what appeared to be human flesh, blood stains in the dirt, and tiger footprints everywhere, but the body was never found. The prevailing theory at this point is that the tiger dragged Mikhail back to its lair and then ate him. There's little chance of his remains ever being found, and because this happened so far away in the forest, there isn't much anyone can do about it. It's just one of the dangers of logging in the Russian wilderness. And number 1, a rookie cop. Cops have a tough job. There's no doubt about it. If you think being a police officer is easy, let's take a look at the case of Ashley Ginden. She was responding to a domestic shooting on a Saturday evening when she herself became a victim of gun violence. Amazingly, Ashley had been sworn in as a police officer the day before her death. She was a rookie cop, and it was her first day on the job. She went to investigate the shooting with 2 other officers, and all 3 of them got blasted. According to the Prince William County Police, Ashley graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona with a bachelor's degree in aeronautics, but because she had a lot of family law enforcement, she decided to do some patrol work. Had she picked any other day to start, she may still be alive right now. But on this Saturday evening, Ronald Hamilton of Virginia got into an argument with his wife. The argument turned violent, and Ronald started shooting. During the fight, he shot his wife to death. That's when the cops showed up. He tried to shoot them too. Ashley lost her life. The other 2 officers were wounded, and Hamilton was swiftly apprehended by other cops who arrived on the scene. He has since been charged with first-degree murder and will never see the light of day again.
10. Joked on pancakes. A college in Connecticut recently settled a lawsuit after one of their students died during a dramatic pancake eating contest back in 2017. I'm talking about Sacred Heart University in Fairfield. This college has agreed to undisclosed terms with Caitlin Nelson's mother. Naturally, Caitlin's mother was furious with the college after her 20-year-old daughter died just 3 days following the eating contest. She filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the college, though we don't know exactly how much money they gave her. The court proceedings are over, but no one is spilling the beans on how much Caitlin's premature death cost the college. But let's go back to the eating contest. The idea was dreamed up by a sorority with the intent of benefiting a group called Prevent Child Abuse America. In other words, it was supposed to be an eating contest for charity. And pancakes seemed like the perfect food. Seems innocent enough, right? Caitlin herself was a social work major, with her father being one of the police officers that died during the September 11th attacks in Manhattan. The family had already been through a lot, and nobody expected Caitlin to die eating hotcakes. Just a few minutes into the competition, Caitlin started choking. A pair of nursing students tried to save her life with first aid, and it seemed to work at first. Paramedics quickly arrived, and Caitlin was taken to the hospital, where she had to be transferred to another hospital. It was at the second hospital where she died, all because a thick piece of pancake got stuck in her throat, and she couldn't get the darn thing out. 9. Taco Mayhem. 41-year-old Dana Hutchings viewed himself as an eating champion. Specifically, Dana loved tacos. Who doesn't? So when he was at a minor league baseball game at Chukchansi Park in Fresno, California, he eagerly signed up for the taco eating contest. The contest was being held in honor of the game between the Fresno Grizzlies and the Memphis Redbirds, but it would be the last minor league game that Dana ever witnessed. While stuffing tacos into his face as quickly and as voraciously as possible, he started to choke. He choked so hard that he needed medical assistance. According to Officer Tony Botti, who was present at the time of the disaster, Dana made it to the hospital where medical staff had to literally pull food out of his airway. But all their attempts failed. Dana had no way to breathe, and he died there on the table. This is an unfortunate side effect of eating contests. If you don't know what you're doing, sometimes you can choke on your food. Dana's 18-year-old son is now trying to sue the event organizers for negligence. The son claims that his father was never warned of the risks involved with the eating contest, and that it's all their fault that he's dead. The kid is now seeking monetary damages against Fresno Sports and Event LLC. 8. Eating cockroaches. In Florida, an eating contest from hell resulted in one death. The death has experts puzzled, while the very existence of the eating contest has the rest of the world wanting to be sick. This was the Midnight Madness bug eating competition, held at Ben Siegel Reptiles, about 40 miles, 64 kilometers from Miami. The main course, cockroaches. Yes, it was a creepy-crawly eating competition, including 2 different types of worms and cockroaches. Edward Archbold signed up for the competition, thinking it would be both fun and gross. Archbold ate at least 60 grams of mealworms, 35 superworms, which, by the way, are about 3 inches, 7.6 centimeters long each, and most of a bucket of raw roaches. The prize to the winner of the competition was a free python from the Reptile Emporium. Eat a couple of bugs, get a free snake. This is not where most people are spending their Friday nights. Amazingly, Edward Archbold won the competition. He ate the most bugs and slurped up the most worms. But according to the Broward County Sheriff's Office, Edward then got violently ill. He collapsed out on the street in front of the store, started vomiting all over himself, and then was dragged to the hospital. By the time doctors got to look at him, he was already dead. The big question now is, how did Edward die? He didn't choke on anything, but instead got so sick that he literally puked his guts out. The best theory right now is that Edward simply ate way too many cockroaches, hitting his tolerance level for the allergens shed by roaches. Eating 1 or 2 roaches wouldn't cause a reaction to their allergens, but eating a whole bucket of them probably caused Edward to go into anaphylactic shock. 7. Cake seizure. In Australia, the country was celebrating its birthday. And what better way to celebrate Australia Day than with a cake-eating competition? The contest was put together at the Beach House Hotel in Queensland, as they actually have a lamington eating contest every single year for Australia Day. But this time, tragedy struck when a 60-year-old woman stuffed too many of these little cakes into her mouth and started flopping around on the floor from a seizure. For those who aren't familiar with lamingtons, they're Australian cakes made from pieces of butter cake or sponge cake, with a delicious outer layer of chocolate sauce, and the whole thing rolled in yummy coconut. It's totally unique to Australia, actually named after Lord Lamington, Governor of Queensland back in the year 1896. That is why it's chosen every year for the national eating competition. But according to the BBC, when the woman stuffed too many of these traditional sponge cakes into her mouth, she had a seizure. Security staff at the hotel rushed to perform CPR and held the woman until paramedics arrived. But unfortunately, by the time they got her to the Hervey Bay Hospital, there was nothing doctors could do and she died. Nobody knows why the cakes threw her into a fit of seizures, but it was likely the seizures that did her in. The last thing anyone needs during an eating contest is to be spasming with 10 tiny cakes in their mouth. Talk about the worst birthday ever. 6. Death by cake. A doctor in training signed up for an eating contest at a Moscow bar. Alexandra Yudina, just 23 years old, was pitted against 2 other people in the competition. Sadly for this young girl, who wanted to be a doctor, she choked to death after eating only 3 pieces of cake. The contest had barely even started. She popped 3 chunks of cake into her face, but then couldn't swallow them. Spectators at the bar captured her slow and excruciating death on video. The poor student gasped for breath, hammered herself in the chest, and then collapsed to the floor. I'm not sure what it is about cake, but it seems to be the deadliest thing that a person can eat too quickly. Even after just 3 small cakes, Alexandra was done for. Her friends tried to clear the blockage, but to no avail. And these were medical students, people who really knew what they were doing. And when paramedics arrived, they too were unable to clear the blockage. And so, sadly, Alexandra died right there in the bar. After hearing about these terrifying deaths, would you ever sign up for a cake-eating competition? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 5. Too many chili peppers. The Carolina Reaper is the hottest chili pepper in the world. Naturally, it's the final challenge in any serious chili pepper eating competition. This spicy pepper goes beyond 2.2 million on the Scoville heat scale. When a 34-year-old man was challenged to eat a Carolina Reaper as part of the contest, he had no idea that it was basically lava. Just listen to what happened to this poor sucker. Immediately after ingesting the pepper, he started dry heaving. He then developed an excruciating pain in his neck that turned into a relentless series of headaches and migraines. The pain was so bad that the man rushed himself to the emergency room at the Bassett Medical Center in New York. He had nausea, vomiting, and couldn't stop dry heaving. The headaches were coming and going, and doctors were worried that he might be suffering from bleeding from his brain. They had to do CT and MRI scans of his brain to see what was happening. This was when they realized that the blood vessels in his brain had narrowed, causing what is known as reversible cerebral vasoconstriction syndrome. In other words, the Carolina Reaper was so hot that it was like a fist squeezing the blood vessels inside this man's brain. He's lucky he didn't drop dead. What's the hottest pepper you've ever eaten? Let us know in the comments below. 4. The deadly chicken wing. Depending on your personal taste, a KFC eating contest is either the grossest thing in the world or like a brief trip to heaven. In Jakarta, Indonesia, a KFC eating contest ended up being one man's final stop in life, as he choked to death on a chicken wing. His name was Freddy Jayadi, and he was competing to eat the most chicken wings in under 5 minutes. If he won the contest, he would win about $5,000. But as Freddy finished eating his third piece of chicken, everything went horribly wrong. He got a chunk of it stuck in his throat and couldn't get it out. He tried guzzling water, but that didn't help. He ended up quitting the competition so that he could be taken to the nearby hospital. But even once he got to the hospital, there was nothing doctors could do to save him. In response to the sad death, the contest was called off. There were actually several different KFC contests going on throughout Java and Bali, with a grand finale planned that would host all of the winners of the various contests. But as it turned out, KFC is simply too deadly to be messing around with, even for a huge grand prize. 3. Too many hot dogs. In South Dakota, Walter Eagletail, 47 years old, died from an overload of hot dogs. The eating contest was taking place on the 4th of July. It was a day of celebration and drunken revelry, as well as overindulgence of everyone's favorite wiener-shaped food. According to the Custer County Sheriff Rick Wheeler, the victim was in the middle of the contest when he got a hot dog lodged in his throat and couldn't get it out. This is like choking on cake, except worse, because there was a full hot dog jammed in his throat. It was impossible to remove, and he ended up suffocating to death right there in front of a crowd of spectators, while the other competitors desperately tried to save him. But sadly for Walter, there was nothing anyone could do to save his life. He died with a wiener in his mouth. No pun intended. After Walter's tragic death, the Custer Chamber of Commerce, which was responsible for setting up the contest, canceled the next eating competition that was scheduled for the upcoming Friday. There was supposed to be a pie eating contest, but out of respect for the dead, they put that one on hold. And in case you're curious, the record for the most hot dogs eaten in 10 minutes goes to 8-time champion Joey Chestnut, who managed to swallow 69 hot dogs in a competition back in 2013. 2. The traditional croissant. Mario Melo was a light heavyweight champion boxer in South America back in the 1980s and 1990s. He was an absolute powerhouse, seemingly unbeatable with his fist. But unfortunately for Mario, the one fight he was never able to win was with a croissant. Mario, at 56 years old, agreed to enter a croissant eating contest on live TV in Argentina. There didn't appear to be any danger involved, but as we've come to learn today, eating just about anything can prove deadly. When Mario began stuffing croissants into his mouth, he effectively sealed his fate. He started to choke, and as he choked, the people in the audience and the people at home thought he was pulling a joke for the TV. For this reason, nobody got up to help him. It wasn't until he made a huge scene, pounding on the table and falling over, that people realized he was in real trouble. There was a doctor in the audience, and he ran to try and save Mario's life. But there was nothing that could be done, and the boxer died, defeated finally by a traditional Argentine croissant. 1. A messy contest. 2 guys agreed to an eating competition. It was a face-off between one guy named Cody and another guy named Kobe as part of the Dude Perfect eating competition. They were supposed to eat a 7-pound, 3-kilogram burger packed with more than 7,000 calories at Kenny's Burger Joint. The owner of the burger joint, Kenny Bowers, told the pair that they had just 1 hour to finish the burger and there was only one rule: nobody was allowed to puke. If somebody barfed, the competition was over and they were forfeit. But that didn't stop things from getting exceptionally messy. Nobody choked and died, thankfully. But Kobe did lose control of his bowels in the middle of the eating competition. He pooped right in his pants. And if that weren't disgusting enough on its own, the smell of Kobe pooping his pants caused Cody to barf up his food. Within just seconds, what should have been a hilarious eating contest turned into a fluid free-for-all. The entire restaurant filled with such stink that the competition had to be called to a close, and most people quickly evacuated the restaurant. It was absolutely horrifying. In this case, nobody really won the competition. Everyone was way too disgusted. Would you dare partake in any of these wild eating contests? Let us know in the comments, and thanks a lot for watching. Remember to subscribe and watch more awesome videos from the channel. See you next time. Bye.